ClockUp is so back. They're a studio known for their Nukage titles, but I'm a fan of them because of their more serious titles like Maggot Baits and Euphoria. Maggot Baits being my second favorite visual novel of all time. It's been a while since we've gotten one of those more serious titles translated, which is why I was ecstatic when Manga Gamer announced they were releasing Dead Days. That's the one I've been wanting them to translate since I finished Maggot Baits in 2019. Just seeing the amazing opening was enough to sell me on it, especially knowing the scenario is written by Kurashiki Tatsuya, the same writer for Maggot Baits. Now that Dead Days is out, how is it really? Is it as good as I hoped, and how does it compare to Maggot Baits and Euphoria? These are the questions I'll answer today. Dead Days is the story of Kurashiki Teru, an ordinary high school boy that specializes in lying. One eventful day, in a cruel twist of fate, Teru finds himself beaten to death by some Yakuza because of a kind of prank gone wrong. Death is not the end of his story, obviously. In fact, it's just the beginning of his dead days. After being killed, he finds himself in an unfamiliar room with 3 other strangers. These people all have one thing in common. They remember dying. They soon find out they've been resurrected by a mysterious organization as a kind of experiment. Their bodies have been altered and now run on electricity. They hold charge like a phone and will steadily deplete. When it reaches 0, they'll go back to being dead. To avoid this, they have to go on missions to eliminate these ghostly creatures called Spectres to get recharged. These 4 strangers have to grip with the reality of being at the mercy of this organization and undertaking these dangerous missions, while also upholding their normal lives. If this plot setup sounds familiar, it's very similar to that of the manga series Gantz. Gantz is also about a high school boy that dies, but finds himself brought back to life by aliens, and must stay alive by fighting other aliens. It's extremely gory and sexual and just a lot of fun in how insane the manga can get. I'd even say that the way Teru is characterized as a scumbag liar, and his character arc is about him becoming more mature and empathetic, is similar to that of the protagonist of Gantz, Kurono Kei. I'm sure that Kurashiki is a fan of Gantz, and it was an influence on the story. So if you like Gantz, you'll probably enjoy Dead Days, and vice versa. Anyway, back to Dead Days. Kurashiki Teru is our protagonist, and he's an interesting one to follow. He's unique in how he's a manipulative, lying scumbag. While he acts cooperative around others, this is only so he can use them. His internal narration reveals his true thoughts, which are often at odds with what he says to others. Teru is the kind of guy that sticks close to the popular guy in his class because it lets him get close to the girls attracted to the popular guy and take advantage of them. What's interesting to me is how self-aware he is. He acknowledges himself as a lying scoundrel, yet the way he describes himself can come across as somewhat self-deprecating, which I think is a hint towards his true nature. Of course, he does develop as a character throughout the story and becomes a bit more heroic. He starts growing closer to the heroines in the roots and starts seeing them as not merely tools to satiate his lust, but as genuine romantic partners. The most impactful relationship for him has to be that with Mao. Mao is his childhood friend and his mortal enemy. She is his complete antithesis, be self-righteous and sincere to a fault. They have a strange relationship at the start of the story. While Mao does seem interested in rekindling their friendship, Teru completely rejects her because she represents everything he isn't. There's obviously an incident in their past that caused this strange relationship, and Teru's warped outlook on life. But that's not something that's delved into until Mao's route. Even with their strange relationship, it's clear Teru cares for her a great deal, established in the beginning in the incident that leads to Teru to being killed. Teru is willing to sell out any of his female classmates to these Yakuza if it means saving his own skin, until the Yakuza take an interest in Mao specifically, who he refuses to betray, even at the cost of his own life. It's one of the coolest scenes in the story that shows just how much Mao means to him and gets the audience hooked early on. As a character, Mao is fine. I think her relationship with Teru is sweet, but she's definitely not my favorite in the game. Her route is easily the best though. You have to unlock it by doing Arya and Manami's routes first. Mao's route is essentially the true route. It is the longest and gives the most closure to the story. All the major mysteries that have been built up throughout the story are revealed. It's not perfect. I think there are 1 or 2 odd decisions that I can't talk about without spoiling everything. But overall, it was a lot of fun and a satisfying conclusion. Arya and Manami are the other 2 that could be considered heroines of the game. They've also been brought back with rebooted bodies, and are forced to hunt specters with Teru. Arya is an airheaded Gyaru. He's a bundle of fun that deals with problems with her trusty metal bat. Her route is about her seeking to avenge her own death. Unfortunately, while I enjoy Arya as a character, her route is admittedly kinda weak. It ends abruptly and in a way that feels unfulfilling. Maybe that was the intention, but I doubt it. The problem with Arya's route as well as Manami's route is that they feel just like build up for Mao's route. They don't stand too well on their own, but at least they're pretty short. Manami is the other notable heroine. She's the older woman character that's actually married. Sounds cool until I realized that she's the same age as me and felt incredibly old. The route is about her trying to balance her family life with Spectre hunting to keep her alive. I can see people being put off by the NTR vibes the route has. Teru knows that she's married, but pursues her anyway, absolutely mesmerized by her sizable chest. Personally, I found her route to be a bit meandering during the beginning, lacking the kind of drive Arya had with her desire for vengeance, instead focusing on Manami's family drama. However, it really redeems itself by the end, offering a better conclusion than that of Arya's route. The climax and final battle of this route is really cool. It saved the route in my eyes. Aside from these main routes, there are a couple other short bad ends associated with other female characters, as an excuse to give them H scenes. These bad ends are completely optional, but have some interesting scenarios. Samehara Kiriru is one of these girls that gets a bad end route. He's a typical yandere character reminiscent of Yuna Gasai, and also happens to be the best character in the game. I don't typically go for ones this crazy, but she surprised me. She has some of the best lines and facial expressions in the game. She never ceased to amuse me. Half the screenshots I took of Dead Days were of her. Her voice actress does an excellent job. She has a very distinct laugh and way of speaking, which the voice acting really sells. Plus she has an eye patch, and I may have something of an eye patch fetish. I also love how Teru is completely repulsed by her, always referring to her as creepy and gross, which only makes me more endeared to her. Her love for Teru is sincere. She just has a warped way of showing it. There are various factors that made her basically perfect. I wish she had a bit more focus, maybe explore backstory a bit more, but all of her scenes are already incredible, so I'm just being greedy. There's another character called Nobody66. They're technically non-binary and speak like a machine. They're kinda like a member of Organization 13. They have a cool cloak, and their existence is similar to that of a nobody. They belong to an organization opposed to the one that brought our main group back with their rebooted bodies. Despite this, 66 isn't hostile. Rather, they seem intrigued by humans. I wish they were involved a bit more, but all their stuff is amazing, particularly the direction the character takes towards the end of Manami's route, as well as Mao's route. Kamikubo Juria is a young girl that joins the group late into the common route. She's a character that uses her body to manipulate those around her in an attempt to rise in the idol industry. With how young she appears, the whole concept of her character is pretty dark. She has an interesting bond with Teru because they're both manipulative liars. They can understand each other's true nature. Unfortunately, because she shows up so late in the common route, she feels kinda irrelevant. She doesn't get to do as much as the other characters, nor does she have a route focused on her. She still gets a few great scenes, but I feel more could have been done with her character. Indo Eta is another character that felt somewhat underutilized. He's the reason why Teru died in the first place, and with his appearance, you'd think he'd be a typical scumbag character. He actually turns out to be a total bro. Every scene with him is delightful. I enjoy the friendship he had with Teru and with Tengan. I wish there was more of him in the story, but everything with him is extremely enjoyable. The final character I'll talk about is Tengan Sokuichi, but he's one of my favorites. He's a member of the main group that was resurrected. However, there's a lot that's off about him. He claims to have amnesia and can remember nothing about himself aside from his name. What's more, Teru soon finds out that his death is the only one among the group that wasn't covered up. There's a lot about him that's strange, and the mystery of who he is and why he's there is one of the parts I found most compelling about the narrative. Tengan also has an odd rivalry of sorts with Teru. Tengan is very sharp, picking up on some things fast, occasionally faster than Teru. Teru finds Tengan to be unpleasant and untrustworthy, but puts up with him for the sake of cooperation and mutual survival. It's about time I touched on the erotic content of the game. It is a ClockUp title after all. And what is ClockUp without tons of H scenes? In true ClockUp fashion, there are a variety of sex scenes. However, they didn't feel quite as bothersome as the ones in Euphoria and Maggot Baits. There is a narrative excuse for having so many of these scenes, and that's because of the odd side effect of the reboot bodies. It's explained that their bodies experience heightened sexual arousal after being charged as a way of their bodies asserting that they are alive. I think this is a pretty clever explanation. It gives these scenes a narrative weight. It shows one of the major downsides to being brought back to life. It's a reminder of how their bodies have been tampered with without their consent. Their human dignity has been trampled upon, as they are reduced to beast and heat during these periods. These scenes are used to bring Teru closer to the heroines, but it's also made apparent how degrading it is, especially for the women. The writing can be surprisingly competent during the H scenes. I do think there are some that do a good job at showcasing the dynamics between some of the characters. Even still, I did find myself getting tired of these scenes, a sigh escaping my lips as I am forced to endure yet another act of coitus. The sheer volume and length of these scenes can get tiresome. The content of these scenes is actually pretty vanilla, much less extreme than Maggot Baits and Euphoria. There's still a couple Guru scenes, but those are regulated to optional bad ends. So I'd say it's overall one of the more approachable ClockUp visual novels. Personally, I found myself rather amused by these Guru scenes. They're certainly some of the most interesting, and kept me engaged far more than the vanilla scenes. In particular, I loved one of Kururu in her bad end. It's romantic skull fucking. It's the cutest thing. Kururu was a character made for me in every way. Let's talk about these Spectre hunts. They are a big draw to the game after all. The Spectres themselves look cool and spooky. They feel straight out of a horror movie. The battles against them are thrilling because our protagonists are given a limited inventory beforehand. In addition, Spectres initially appear human, which makes the audience and characters question if these things are actually dangerous and why they have to kill them. These scenes are definitely the highlight of the common route. Unfortunately, after that, the narrative kind of skips over the group's battles. This does make some sense, as these scenes start to become routine and easy for the group. It just becomes another part of their lives that they have to deal with now and then. So I guess having less focus on them in favor of focusing on the characters' personal problems and the larger mystery behind these secret organizations is sensible. One thing I appreciated about the writing is how it frequently switched perspectives. While Teru is our central protagonist, he'll switch to the perspective of other characters at certain points. This gives the audience further insight into what those characters are truly feeling. I think everyone has unique internal voices. I thought Tengan had the most fascinating perspective aside from Teru. I was always interested in what was going on with him. Of course, he has the issue of his amnesia, which causes him to question his place in the world and leads to some unique views on life. The presentation is what you'd expect from ClockUp. There's a lot of CGs, mostly for age scenes, but the normal CGs look very good. The main artist this time is Norazane, who is an assistant artist for Maggot Baits and has become the main artist for their big titles like Restless Sheep and Lone Wolf, Heroine, and Leaked. She's a very skilled artist and I'm a fan of her style. Her work on Dead Days is excellent, and there's a pretty vast selection of CGs. What's neat is that there's an option to censor the gore in the CGs for those particularly squeamish. I didn't need it, of course, but it does make the game a bit more accessible. I really love Kururu's design and expressions. The music is decent. I noticed a couple tracks that were also used in Leaked and Maggot Baits. ClockUp likes to reuse music, but it doesn't bother me. I do wish the soundtracks for these games were a bit more unique, but I guess it can't be helped. The opening song Liar Liar by Mr. Fantastic is stellar. It's worth listening to on its own, but it matches the themes of the story fairly well. The vocal performances are fantastic. Again, I must state I love Kururu's voice acting. Her voice actress, Aoi Tokyo, really brought the character to life. I adore how she did Kururu's weird cackling. It's incredible. Aside from her, I think Tengen's voice actor, Kagira Daisuke, showed some impressive range. Thematically, Dead Days is about life. It's all about what keeps these characters going in their second chance at life, despite the grim situation they're put in. Manami has her family, and Arya has her desire for revenge. Even Tengen is able to find some meaning in the battles against Spectres, as these life or death situations will make him feel truly alive. Teru is the only one who seems to lack this drive or passion for life, which causes him to question why he's still alive at all. Of course, his development is about him finding meaning and reason to continue on, because of his relationships with the heroines, especially Mao. The other major theme is that of lies, those that we tell to others and to ourselves. This is embodied by Teru, who is never honest with others and might not even be true to himself. In conclusion, is Dead Days worth reading? I'd say so. It's an enjoyable time, brought down slightly by the amount of age scenes and some odd plot developments in Mao's route, but there's still some amazing moments. I do think Teru is a pretty engaging protagonist, and I absolutely adore Kuriru. Would I say that it's as good as Maggot Baits? Unfortunately, it's not quite on that level. I think Maggot Baits has more thematic richness and much cooler villains. Maggot Baits is a game that kept me thinking long after I finished it, while Dead Days didn't give me as much to chew on. Dead Days has shown that Kurashiki is a very skilled writer. No matter what he works on, I end up having a good time. Anyway, I think if you enjoy ClockUp games, then you definitely should check out Dead Days, and if you haven't tried any before, it's a decent starter because of its mostly vanilla content. You can buy it on the Manga Gamer store exclusively for now. If you made it this far, thanks for watching.
実際もう死んでるんだけどね。はい、ここ笑うとこですよ。